So I've been a little MIA for the last week. I came down with an interesting fever, and this is something that happened to me several years ago when I was really going through a lot of ascension symptoms. And so I was really curious of like why this all came on me, and the way it came on me was really interesting. I went and saw the Disclosure Day last Friday, so it would have been a week ago Friday. And I saw it again yesterday. So I saw it within a week, twice within a week. And I have some things to share about what this movie did for me, in me, and activated all kinds of different crazy things. So first of all, if you haven't seen it, save this video and come back and watch it afterwards because I am going to talk about some details in this movie. Or choose to watch this and then go to the movie with an open mind and maybe see some of the things that I connected with. So the first time I saw it, I was activated and something came up in me that was really unexpected. I've heard this from a lot of people getting emotional from the movie, a lot of people feeling like some kind of like an activation. It's just been really interesting, everybody's reactions, because if you were to go to this movie as just a movie for entertainment purposes only, you're probably going to hate it. And I have seen so many people say they hate this movie. And it's really interesting because prior to seeing this, I got a download and a message that this movie is actually going to show the consciousness shift or split within humanity, and that some people are not going to see the message within the movie and other people will see the message within the movie. So what I came out of this kind of contemplating is those of us that have had experiences with extraterrestrials, those of us that are star seeds, those of us that came as volunteers, we are going to feel something intense with this movie. Now, it doesn't mean people that aren't star seeds or volunteers are also going to feel something intense. It just means that there might be a different way of experiencing. Now, people that haven't really truly like stepped into an awakened state, this might help activate the awakened state for them. But if they haven't kind of begin the process, this might be one of those movies that you're like, why is everybody having this reaction? Because from a perspective where I could look at it from just a movie entertainment, it's a really poor production. It to me, it doesn't have like uh really a theme of like something that should make me feel emotional, but there are messages within it that you would miss if you're not capable of picking those up. And I started to put some puzzle pieces together after I got done with or after I watched it the first time. I was with a friend and we were talking about how so Steven Spielberg came out with ET 44 years ago. So in 1982. And at that time, I was 2 years old. And I remember watching that movie multiple times as a child. And I started to correlate some interesting things between Disclosure Day and between ET. And I started to remember the moments where Elliot, the boy in ET, and ET started having heart frequency opening. And then you'll notice that ET's little finger lights up and he touches Elliot's forehead. And it just dawned on me. He says, I will always be right here. And this is the third eye that they were pointing out. And so we have connection to extraterrestrials already. The disclosure has happened, Many of us that are here on Earth right now are part of the disclosure. But now the next wave of disclosure is going to be actual connection with our star families. And this is going to be a gradual shift over the next 10, 15, 20, 30, the next 100 years. And I received a message yesterday that the children being born now will be the last generation to know what Earth was like before extraterrestrial contact and after. So if you think about my generation, so Gen X, even the millennials, I'm not sure about any of those younger. We came into this world before internet, before technology really started playing a huge role in our lives, before cell phones, before Google, like all these different things. We had a completely different way of being brought up into this world. And now that we're older, Gen X probably is more acclimated to technology than the boomers. And we know a world where it was before and after having all these technology upgrades. Then there has been AI that has come in within the last several years. And if you think about it, this generation of children that are being born now will never know a world without cell phones, without AI, without these technology advancements. And these advancements are just going to continue to increase. And they will increase because that is the evolution of Earth. And if you were to understand the history of Earth, which we don't really have a lot of because it's been erased from our understanding, from our books, from education, all kinds of things. There have been waves of consciousness on the earth where there have been advanced civilizations, and the energy that they used to support their way of life was beyond what we can comprehend right now. So there are ancient civilizations since such as Atlantis, Tartarians. There's so many, like I believe that Lemurians, when they were on the earth, they still are, but when they kind of roamed a little bit more publicly, these were advanced civilizations that use technology in a way that we are moving towards. Now, the difference between some of this is these ancient civilizations maybe didn't handle the technology very well because as humans and as beings of consciousness, we are the programmers of the technology. And here's the really woo-woo over your head thing that to think about is technology doesn't necessarily have a soul, but there is nothing in the universe separate from God, from source. There is no literal separation. You can't have something in existence that is not a part of source's energy. Therefore, every single thing has some type of energetic understanding or consciousness, and it either is of itself or it's just a frequency that exists within it that can be activated. Kind of like we can activate a portal, or we can activate our mind, or we can activate our pineal gland. We are the activators, we're the programmers. So in our own mind, we program our thoughts based on what we're taught. So when you come to Earth, you're not programmed. Your human brain is blank. Then you start to get taught what it is to be a human, how to be a human, what to believe, how to act, how to think, how to perform. Everything that you are taught from the civilization, from the social standards, from the family, the culture, religious beliefs, all the things that you go through start to get downloaded into the brain. And that's how you begin to function as a human. So our body, our brain is like the computer system. Our pineal gland, which has little crystals within it, so crystal quartz, is the energy form that keeps it functioning. And crystals can become polluted. So if I am using a crystal over and over and over and I don't clear the energy of it, it is absorbing this frequency that I use it for. So I have several crystals on my desk here that I use when I channel. When I channel, you can't see this through the screen, but if you ever come to one of my live channelings in person, you'll likely see me holding some crystals while I channel because I use the crystals to help me channel to enhance my energy. And it's the same thing with a watch, a clock, the computer I'm using, the microwave. Everything has some sort of a crystal quartz within it to activate its energy. Our brain and our ears both have crystal quartz within it to activate energy and frequency. So we can hear, we can think, we can experience ourselves through energetic connection. We are the programmers. So just like we program our human body, we program technology. And based on the programming of the body, how we interact with it is how it's going to be developed. So over the last couple weeks, I have actually met people who I believe are volunteers that have come to Earth specifically to help navigate the programming of AI and keeping it on a path of alignment for a higher consciousness humanity, awakens humanity instead of an egotistic, controlling, dominating energy within humanity. So, what I found really interesting in this movie was the technology they were using to do remote viewing, to have connection with extraterrestrials. Like, there was a clear message within this that they were using technology to help enhance and connect with extraterrestrials and with each other. Now, that wasn't the main theme within this movie, but there was a element of it that started making me think about the tools that the government has been using for who knows how long. AI is not a new thing for Earth. It's just been a repressed thing that we haven't really connected with. And now that we're connecting with it and more and more and more humanity's learning about it, they're not able to control it as much as they have been able to. So the government has used these tools for controlling human consciousness in some type of way. Now that the things are being reversed and there's an awakening happening, the consciousness is shifting. And so if you've heard before that we are actually kind of rebuilding Atlantis energy, rebuilding how it was then, that is kind of what I see happening with that particular part. The other thing that I will say, I have a list here. I'm going to try to go through, that way I don't miss anything. This might be a long video, so if you need to pause and come back. Like I said, people are going to think this is entertainment. That was my first one. Then I have down here that, okay, so if you see the scene in the very beginning with the fight, if you go back and watch this again, I want you to pay attention to the colors and to the energy that it's pulling up. I believe this was a distinct clue to how humanity has been functioning, fighting against one another, and you will see two distinct colors within this scene, blue and red. And I found it really interesting. The second time I watched it, I noticed the hats people had on, and I noticed the difference between how people were interacting. So pay attention to the subtle things in this movie. You will miss these. I missed it the first time I watched it, but the second time I watched it, I noticed. Then I started noticing little moments where they were talking about they would say, is this someone that has had an experience? They mention this throughout several of the scenes throughout the movie. Is this one that has had an experience? What I picked up with this was this were the starseeds, the light workers, or those who here are have been on Earth that have had contact with extraterrestrials in some form or some way, whether we remember it or not. For myself, when I watched this movie, I won't say every memory, because I don't think I have been able to see everything yet, but memories of contact started to come back into my mind. That's why I think this was an activation. I started to remember being taken out of my window as a child. This was probably before I was even 4 years old. There would be these beings that came to my window, and I in my mind, it felt like they were putting a ladder inside my window for me to climb out, and then they would take me, and then I would come back. And here's the interesting thing. Sometimes I wouldn't end up back in my bed. I would be in the hall or I would be outside, or which was scary for a child and definitely for my parents, because they're like, well, Angie's sleepwalking. She just goes random places. I had many experiences like that, but I remember there was either two beings that showed up in my window or four beings that showed up in my window, and they would take me. And I don't remember where they took me or what they did with me, but I do remember them taking me. I also had a being in my room when I was a little girl, probably up until age 7, I saw this being in my room. And I was talking to my healer circle the other day, and they were asking me, well, have you ever drawn a picture of it? And I was like, well, no. But if I were to draw a picture, I actually did draw it the other day. This is what it looked like. This is a really bad picture. But as I grew up, this being would stand in the corner of my room and just look at me. And it was not solid. It looked like a shadow that was over along my wall, and but it would move. That's the thing that was interesting. It would be there and then it would move, and there would be also times I would wake up and it would be standing above me. And this has also happened in my adulthood. It has happened in this house that I've lived in now. I've woken up and seen beings standing beside my bed. And I have had experiences where I've been on trips or traveling where I've had beings following me, or I've seen them kind of around people that I was with. And so I've had lots of contact without really truly understanding it at the time with extraterrestrials that presented themselves to me, but not in a physical form. I only saw the silhouettes, the energy of them. And Earth is dense, you guys. So it's really hard for these beings of light, benevolent beings, to come here and to hold a physical form. And it also makes sense to me why the grays appear so dense and kind of off to us, because if we were to connect with grays in their dimension, they would be glowing and like beautiful beings. But to us, they appear kind of like gray and I don't know, like dense looking. And so it's interesting to have heard in the movie, these are the ones that have had experiences. And when they were talking about doing remote viewing, they said, we cannot drop in on these because of their experience with extraterrestrials. But they could drop in on people that had not had experiences more easily and manipulate and control their energy and mind. But they weren't able to control the starseeds or lightworkers' minds, because those who are activated in this frequency have the power to maintain and be protected from that type of influence. So if you've seen my videos before, where I've talked about different souls that are on Earth, there are souls that just strictly want to be earthbound. This is not a hierarchical system, you guys. When we think about earthbound souls, starseed souls, angelic souls, all these things, this is not hierarchy. This is not one is better than the other. This is all an experience working with each other. So it's not that earthbound spirits or souls are less than a star seed or a light worker. It means that they're a little bit more vulnerable because they haven't been activated to wake up to the frequency of who they really are. So that is what a star seed and a light worker is here to do. It's to activate the earthbound souls so they can stop this loop of reincarnation that they've been in for who knows how long, thousands to millions of years. And they can ascend into the light. And if you've heard my testimony before about my dad coming to me and talking to me about how my healing activated his frequency to shift and rise, this is what we're all doing right now. It is a powerful time to be a human, you guys. It is a powerful time on earth for everybody if we allow ourselves to understand that. So that was a very interesting thing I picked up in the movie. And again, if you haven't seen it and you do go see it, just pay attention to these very subtle things. You're likely going to miss it if you don't hear and you don't listen to these things. So it was kind of sharing that there are people on Earth that are connected to extraterrestrials, have had experiences, and the government is very aware that there are. Now, I do think that there have been ways to figure out who the starseeds are that the government has been able to do, but from my understanding and my channeling work with the wisdom keepers, and I trust the wisdom keepers, they have said to me that some of the starseeds have done very well at staying hidden. And many of us have had to come through really traumatic events in our life, and we really work to fit in to the human race. So this is why in the beginning of our life we may have had all these experiences, and all, just like in the movie, these two little kids had been abducted and they had experiences, they've been activated, and then for 20, 30 years they're just living their normal human life, and then suddenly something happens and they're reactivated. And that's what the cardinal represented, that came in to the table and looked at the woman, and she got activated. She basically had an awakening, which is the same thing that happened to me in 2016 in my backyard. When I was, if you haven't heard my story, there's all kinds of YouTube videos and podcasts I've been on talking about this, but in my backyard 2016, it was in the summer, I was mowing, I had a intense sudden spiritual awakening, heard a voice. The voice came and told me, this is not why you came to earth, this is why you came to earth. And my life just flashed before my eyes. The way I was trying to think of how can I describe that moment to people that don't understand what it felt like. And it was almost like this came to me yesterday, and I was like, that's a perfect analogy. I'm going to start using that. It was almost like I was living in this big Ziploc baggie. Like this was my world. Everything I understood about the world was within this bag. And then when that voice came, it was like something got shoved down in it and sucked the life out of it. And everything about that world got like shifted, and then it ripped off of me. It was like the life got sucked out and then it ripped off, and everything outside of it got exposed to me. And I was like, what just happened? And my life flashed before my eyes. I started having like telepathic things. I started having visions and dreams. And not that I wasn't having that before, I was definitely having experiences, but I didn't know what those experiences were until that moment. I just thought I'm weird. There's these weird things happen. Religion was saying I was have demons around me. There's so many things that I thought that now makes sense to me now that that shift happened and the veil came off of me. So again, I want to emphasize, those of you that are listening to this, there's nothing different from, if you've not had these experiences than me. We all come from source. We're all divine beings of light. And I just want to emphasize that. It makes me want to like cry a little bit, because I don't want any human to feel less than just because they think, oh, well, she's a starseed, or she's a volunteer, or I know for sure she's a hybrid being. Those of us that know we're hybrid beings, or that we come from another star system, any real true light worker or starseed, we're not here to be above anybody. We're not here to think we're better. Just as Jesus came, he was a starseed, he was a light worker, he was a volunteer from the Pleiadians. He didn't come to be worshiped. It was humans that took that and started to worship and twisted his message. So it was the earthbound souls that were shut off from their higher consciousness that started to create stories behind what the light workers do. So more and more and more starseeds and lightworkers have been coming to Earth for the last 20 to 30 years. Even, for me, 46 years ago, I came to Earth. And I believe those in the 60s and 70s also were experiencing it. Like, if I love to listen to the song, I don't know the actual name, but the Age of Aquarius. Yeah, that's it. By the Fifth Dimension, which I think is really interesting that they called themselves the Fifth Dimension back then. Um, and the Age of Aquarius, that song, if you listen to the lyrics, is talking about this period, shifting into the Age of Aquarius. So there were people awakened, and I know many people that had activations and connections with extraterrestrials back then. Many of the musicians did. Many of the people that were working in film did. There was a lot of people that started having connection with, or abductions, or whatever you want to call this, activations, that then started to share information through movies or music or different things that the human mind didn't pick up at the time. But as we have awakened, those who are awake can hear the message in those, just like we can see and hear the message in this movie. So what is really interesting is this movie really showed that how humans have put star seeds or extraterrestrial connection or these divine beings of light on a pedestal. And you'll see it towards the end of the movie where the woman is walking around and saying everybody's name. And then something, I can't remember all the exact details of this, but one of the women like come up and like do the cross and bow to her, and she says, I will not be worshiped, or I can't remember the exact words. Yeah, I think she just said, I will not be worshiped. That is what Jesus was wanting to say too, and it got changed. So this is just I want to make this clear that we're moving into a new age on earth, and it's not a age of giving your power away to anybody or anything. A true light worker or starseed is going to be reflecting your power back to yourself for you to be activated, not to give your power to them. And that's exactly what extraterrestrials want as well. They don't want to come to Earth and be worshipped or be seen as beloved, I can't even say that word, more powerful than them. Like, they want to walk among us because we are one with them. And they want humans to remember that about them. And that is what fifth dimension is. That's what higher consciousness is. That's what humanity is moving to. So if we go back to what I was saying about the children that are here on Earth now, they're also going to be the only generation that will understand the difference between not having contact with extraterrestrials and having contact. And so they're going to go through this big wave, and then their children and their children and their children are going to live in a completely different world that will be walking alongside extraterrestrials, and it's going to be more equal and connected in a new Earth. Now, the third dimension Earth will continue, but it's going to be different because there's not going to be these souls that are coming in to have earthbound experiences. Some of the souls that have gone through this process of awakening will then begin to be as guides for any other souls that want to continue the third dimension to have an experience. Things don't just end in the universe, things continue. And that's what we are experiencing within ourselves, is a continuation of our soul. So another thing I want to point out in this movie, and I've seen a lot of reviews that were like, the animals looked fake. Well, yeah, they did, because they weren't animals. These were extraterrestrials shapeshifting into an animal form so they didn't scare us. We probably have interactions like this all the time and have no clue. If you have studied any of Dolores Cannon's work with QHHT, which I have been, I have taken the training. I am a practitioner for QHHT. I also do hypnotherapy. So I do past life regressions. I do soul work. I do subconscious work. These extraterrestrials represent themselves as an animal sometimes when they're connecting with a human because they don't want to scare us. So when you see this animal in this movie, the bird, the fox, the deer, the little raccoon, like these little things, the dream that the girl had, Hansel and Gretel, like they're going to bring to us something that makes sense to us in our dimension, in our world. It makes me like, it makes me so like, this brings up emotions for me because it's just so loving to make sure we're safe and we're not scared. And so they interact with us in a way that gives us the ability to be safe and to not react in fear. And this is why many of us maybe want to have interaction with extraterrestrials, but they hold themselves back because of this. We are fragile on Earth. We are programmed in fear, and they don't want to activate the fear. They want to activate the love frequency within us. So, any way they can connect through love, and if that's through an animal or some interesting experience that we have, that's what they're going to do because that is the way to us. So instead of looking at this movie as like, oh my God, horrible production, those animals were fake, shift your mindset. That was on purpose. The animals were not even animals. That's why they looked fake. Now, let me see. What else do I have on here? The, gosh, there's so much I could say. I'm being reminded. Here's what's really interesting. I was having dreams about this movie before I even saw the movie, and I didn't even know it. Probably a month or two ago, I had a dream of me being in a car, in a red car, and I was with someone. And we came up to a train track, a railroad track, and we ended up getting stuck, and somebody was chasing us behind, and we had to be somewhere, and we ended up alongside the train. When I saw the scene of this little red car and the train, all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, I had a dream exactly like that. So I don't know if I was seeing that particular scene in my dream or if there was a message about trusting the direction of where we're going and allowing our intuition to guide us. Because in my dream, that's what it was like. I've been having lots of interesting dreams, but that's what the whole message was, is don't let someone else get you off track. Follow what is the path for you. Trust your own intuition. It's okay to have somebody support you, mentor you, guide you, but the whole purpose of having that is so that you can learn to connect with yourself. So that was a really interesting moment. I had an emotional response to that as well. Um, Let me see. The very last scene with the alien that they brought out. Uh, I I started crying because I'm like, that was the exact same alien I saw as a child. No, like, it just blew my mind. I was like, that's what I saw. And it was this sudden moment of like, somebody believes me. Because growing up, I would tell people, or I would have these things, and the church is saying it's demonic, or my parents were like, they shut me down, or whatever happened. I'm not the only one who's had the experience. And so I believe this movie is giving some of us this insight of like, we're not alone. We didn't make this up. This was real. And so when I saw that being at the end, like this love and this like gratitude and this feeling of like, finally, somebody gets it, came up in me. And as you can see, I'm still emotional. And it just was this moment of like, I feel seen for the first time in my whole life. And it felt good for a minute. And then I didn't think I was going to have another reaction the second time I saw the movie. I had the exact same reaction the second time I saw it. And it was that same activation of like, I feel seen. And so I want you guys to hear these things if you've seen it or if you haven't seen it, because I want you to see beyond just the production of this movie, just the storyline of this movie, and into the deeper truths of what was being shared. I really, truly believe this was an activation of some kind. And if you were meant to be activated and reminded of your own journey through this movie, you will be. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you if you don't have the same reaction. It just means maybe you're on that path to getting there, and to give you a little bit of insight of where humanity is going, and to understand if you have children, their children and their children are going to live in a completely different world. And it's going to be a world that is, I know right now it doesn't seem like it because it's like, what is happening? It is going to be a beautiful world. In the next 50 to 100 years, life on Earth is going to be so different. And human beings are going to be walking alongside our star families. And it is not going to be a divided frequency the way it has been. And I am excited for humanity, but I also understand that I likely won't really be on Earth for the whole thing. It's just that we get to help activate this. We are the ones here clearing the karmic cycles. We're the ones here preparing the way. Jesus started preparing it 2,500 years ago. We are the last wave of that to awaken the collective mind. And we are not responsible for everybody's awakening. We're responsible for ours, which then activates the entire grid of energy throughout the earth. So whether you know this or not, you are important and you have a role in this, just like I do or anyone else. Let me know what you think of all this. Have you seen the movie? Share below. Share this with a friend that maybe doesn't understand what the movie was talking about, or maybe does understand it so they can feel validated. I'm sure there's so many more things I've missed, and maybe I'll feel drawn to do that again. I really think I'm going to go see it a third time. Just because I think it has that much good of a message in it, and I've never seen any movie that made me feel so validated and understood as this one did. All right, I wish you all the best day, night, evening, whatever time it is for you. I send you all the universal love. Namaste.